guys, so I'm here today to do my mid-month wrap-up for the month of November. So I did 2 wrap-ups in October, one in the middle of the month, one at the end of the month, to give myself more time to talk about each book since I was reading quite a lot. And I wasn't sure whether to keep doing that, but I've decided, for now at least, if I have at least 5 books to talk about, then I will do a mid-month wrap-up. Because sometimes I feel like if I save up all my books till the end of the month, and I've read quite a few, then I don't take enough time to say much about each one, and I want to give you reviews that will help inform whether you yourself want to read these books. So, like I said, I do have 5 books that I have already read or DNF'd so far in November and wanted to review for you. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. Let's start with the book I DNF'd, since I've already hinted at that. And I'm so sad to say that I didn't finish this book, but it's The Pisces by Melissa Broder. Now I have to confess, I didn't even quite make it to page 100 on this book because I just did not get on with it. I read quite a few chapters and then skimmed a little bit to see what was going on, but didn't actually read 100 pages. I thought I was going to love this book, and some people might still love it. It seems to be a bit of a Marmite on Goodreads when I look at people's reviews, but I so thought this was going to be like a positive Marmite experience for me. Like, I thought I was going to love this book for a few reasons. It's a sort of magical realism story set in North America following our protagonist, a woman in her early 30s doing a PhD in classics. And if you don't know, I'm doing a PhD in classics. She is kind of struggling, she's feeling pretty down, uninspired by her research, questioning herself. She's gone through a breakup, which is kind of like the catalyst for all of this. It really kind of sends her into feeling like utter crap. And I can relate to feeling like crap and struggling with your mental health and all the other life stuff that's going on whilst you're trying to do a PhD. So I just thought, yes, a book about a PhD student studying classics, struggling, plus a romance with a merman. That's the magical realism element. So this book is also very much a romance between the protagonist and a young man who's actually a merman. I just thought I was going to love it, but from the offset there was so many things that irritated me about the protagonist and the writing, so I just could not get into it. I did not find this protagonist likeable, and that's fine. I don't mind a dislikable protagonist, but this is the kind of book where I wanted to in some way relate to or get on with the protagonist. She didn't have to be perfect or whatever, but I wanted to kind of root for her and somehow identify with her in a story where the like centre is about someone struggles with their studies and their life and romance. I want a likeable protagonist, to be perfectly honest, somebody that I at least like to some degree, and I did not like this woman. For one, she spoke a lot about other women in a really derogatory manner. There was, from the offset, like phrases like butterfaced used, which I think are just completely disgusting. If you're not familiar, butterface is an expression used to describe women who don't have pretty faces but have hot bodies. And she generally was quite dismissive of a lot of women's appearance from the beginning, and really just like weird high standards. And I don't know, I didn't like the way she talked about women. I hate the expression butterface. Hate it. So already I wasn't really going to get on with a protagonist who thought that was like an acceptable way to describe other women. And she's been doing her PhD for 13 years, I think it was, and she's still not finished it, yet she's still fully funded. Now, I'm obviously not doing a PhD in North America. I do not know what it's like to do a PhD in North America, but from my perspective, that is incredibly unrealistic. It is hard enough to get funding to do a humanities or classics PhD as it is, let alone for you to be allowed to like coast along for 13 years without actually submitting any research. Like, I couldn't believe that. And that might not bother you if that actually mimics an experience you've had, say, in North America, that's more similar, or if you just don't have a comparable experience that's gonna bug you. But for me, I was like, this just doesn't seem realistic. And as a classicist as well, when she was talking about her research on Sappho, I was just a bit like, okay, sure. I don't know, like, maybe I was too close to this and wanted too much from it and expected too much of it because of that premise. but it didn't deliver on my expectations. But my expectations are obviously very unique to who I am as a person, so you might not feel the same. And I'm not saying don't perhaps borrow this from your library if you are interested in it, but not for me. On the topic of books that I borrowed from the library, I then read a book that I gave 5 out of 5 stars, so it's not all bad, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, and this is translated from Japanese by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This is my 3rd Japanese novel in the past few months, so I'm diving into the Japanese literature a bit of late. So actually, if you do have any recommendations for me, let me know, especially if they're similar to this book, because this to me was sheer brilliance. I loved it. It's maybe more of a novella than a novel, but it packs a punch nevertheless. It follows our protagonist, who is a woman, again in her early 30s, who is working in a convenience store in Japan, and her family and friends just cannot understand why she insists on living off what is essentially a part-time job at a convenience store, and not kind of aiming any higher with her life, or like aiming for anything more according to like their cultural standards and their personal standards. So she's just kept working at this convenience store job because she just feels really at home there. And our protagonist is somebody who really doesn't experience human emotions in the way that you might be used to. I've heard her described as a sociopath. It's not like specified in this book, so I'm not gonna like say that that's kind of what she is. But I guess I can see where that comes from, and if that's something the author said, then it would make sense to me. But she essentially doesn't really understand other people's emotions because she doesn't experience them herself, and she's constantly trying to figure out how she should behave to make other people like her and remain calm and not be confused by her. Like, she kind of wants to blend in and just do what people want her to do, but she doesn't like naturally feel inclined towards the same things that her family and friends do. So when she gets this job in a convenience store when she's a student, she likes the rigidity of it. She likes that there's a manual on how you're supposed to behave, and that she fills this role every single day, and she's good at it. So she keeps working there because she enjoys it, but it's about the pressure everyone's putting on her to basically like change her life. So interesting, so well written, such an endearing, interesting, fascinating character. Obviously somebody very different from me, say, but I could really get inside her head because of the excellent way this book is written, and I just found it to be absolutely fantastic. I feel like I'm just using all the positive adjectives, but there was just something about this book that really compelled me to keep reading. It's quite simplistic in its plot. It's in part very much a character study. It has you thinking and kind of musing on things when you're reading it. It's a thoughtful book. And I've never actually been to Japan, but it was really interesting hearing about Japanese convenience stores as well, because they sounded really cool and interesting. So I really enjoyed this book, basically, is what I'm trying to say, and I would highly recommend it. It's worth all the hype. I've seen a lot of people talking about it and praising it, and I agree. If we want to talk about hyped books though, the next one, phooey, like this is a hyped up book, and that is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So this was hyped even before it got turned into a film, but I think it's become a bit more mainstream recently since it's been turned into a film. And I watched the trailer for the film. I'd already been interested in reading it because I know Joss over at Squibble Reads really enjoyed this book, and ever since her review I felt intrigued. And then the trailer for the film looked really good fun, so I thought, yes, I am really keen to read that. Now, I overall really enjoyed this book, but I do have some mixed feelings about it. And that's why I want some time to talk about those. First of all, if you've seen the trailer, the book is kind of different. I feel like the trailer for the film kind of suggests it's very much a rom-com, but this isn't just a romantic storyline between these two characters on the front here. It actually follows loads of different characters, and chapters change between them. And although Nick and Rachel, who are the characters on the front here, do very much feel like the protagonists, we're following other people's storylines as well that aren't altogether connected to theirs, and it's more about all the people in this world of crazy rich Asia, or specifically Singapore, and these like people in this Chinese family who are Nick's family. But basically Nick and Rachel have been dating for a couple of years, and they are both professors at university in America, and he invites her home with him to Singapore for the first time to meet his family because his best friend is getting married. Rachel is completely unaware that Nick is from a super rich family and just doesn't see what's coming before it hits her. He doesn't really prepare her for his family and his friends and their lifestyle in Singapore in general, and it's all very overwhelming for her. But we also follow characters like Nick's cousin Astrid, who is from this crazy wealthy background, and is dealing with her own marital situation, and Nick's mother, who is really not happy about Nick dating Rachel because she's not from a rich or well-known respected family, and like I mentioned, a slew of other characters. And this is such a compulsive read, I find. It's actually quite slow paced. This edition, I would say, don't love, find the text to be quite small and cramped. And it's just over 400 pages, but it took me a while to read because of both the style in which it's written, which is super detail rich, which I really enjoyed. I felt like I was there in Singapore amongst this kind of wealthy elite. It was gorgeous to read about in the descriptions, but it's also quite like a slow story, and lots of little things are going on in the background with like a slow build up. It's not super fast paced, but I enjoyed that. Like, I enjoyed the pacing, I enjoyed the storyline and all of that. I thought it was just like a really good fun read, and I've actually downloaded the audiobook of the sequel to this, so as you can tell I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm about to start the sequel and really enjoy it, but there were some things that annoyed me about it. The first thing isn't really an irritant with the book, but I do find reading a book like this, which is about such wealthy people, a little bit disturbing, because it just kind of reminds me of the like insanely unfair distribution of wealth in our planet. I mean, there are people living in poverty, and then there are people with this amount of money, and that disturbs me, to be perfectly honest. That's not the fault of the book though, that is just the scenario it's writing about. What I didn't like about the actual book was there was little things here and there that really took me out of the story and made me think, Kevin Kwan, why would you write that? For example, one of the characters, Rachel's friend, who is a likeable character, she's not an antagonist at all, at one point refers to gang rape really casually as a way to describe how much she dislikes a dress. It's like, really? Like, we're casually using gang rape now as a bit of a joke? Like, I don't like that kind of thing. That might not bother you, but I really don't like that. There are also like casual references to kind of like homophobic slurs, which are used by dislikable characters, but I still don't find that particularly necessary if it's not going to be explored. Like, they were dislikable without using those like homophobic slurs, so I just found that a bit jarring. And just those kind of things, like, they might not faze some people, but I just did not like them. But overall, I still really enjoyed this book. So those are my mixed feelings as I described them. The next book I actually read in one sitting. It's a very short little book, and that is Fox 8 by George Saunders. It is essentially a letter. It's a letter written from the perspective of a fox. And this fox is writing this letter to humans. He has been kind of watching humans and listening to humans and has learnt their language. He hasn't learnt how to write properly, so he misspells a lot of things, kind of according to how he's heard them and understood them. So it's written in this like foxy human language as you read it. Like, for example, he calls humans humans and things like that. But like, that was quite cute. Like, I found that quite nice little style. It made me feel like I was listening to a fox. And he's writing this letter to humans because humans have basically like done some really bad things to his natural habitat, and to his like group of foxes, and he's like, why would you behave like this? So he narrates his adventure, his life, as this mall is being built in his part of the world, how that disrupts the lives of these foxes, and then what happens later. And he's narrating his adventure to humans, asking why. Now, it is a very short little book. Like I said, I read it in one sitting, and I'm not like one for reading books in one sitting. you just kind of get wrapped up in it and you're like, oh. It's also got illustrations in it, which obviously takes up some space as well. Let me see if I can find a wee illustration. There we go, we've got fox talking to a dog in a car, so the fox is always in orange and everything else is in black and white. And I surprisingly found this book pulling at my heartstrings. I felt super emotional reading this book. Oh, always reading about the terrible things that humans do to animals hurts. Like, I find that emotional, especially when it's read from the perspective of the animal. So this is not like a super light-hearted little read, it's an emotional, sad little book, and it certainly makes you think. I mean, it's not revolutionary, but sometimes you need to be reminded of these things. And lastly, I listened to an audiobook which I borrowed from my library, and that is Midnight for Charlie Bone by Jenny Nemo. This is a children's book, and it's actually a reread for me, but it's the first time I have reread this book in more than 10 or 15 years. I read this book for the first time, like I said, probably like 13, 14, 15 years ago, and loved it when I was a kid. And I've always meant to go back and reread it, particularly because I don't think I ever finished the series. They were coming out as I was getting a little bit older, so I think I kind of only read the first 3 or 4, and there's actually a few more than that now, I've realised. And I loved this series when I was a kid. It's kind of Harry Potter-esque in that it's about Charlie Bone, a young boy who is sent to Blue's Academy because he is endowed. He has like a magical gift. His gift is that he can look at photographs and hear what the people in the photographs were saying when this photograph was being taken. And there are other children at Blue's Academy who are also endowed with different gifts, like touching clothes and being able to tell the feelings of the person that wore it last, or talking to animals, or moving things with their minds, various different gifts like that. But it's not an all magical school. Lots of the children at Blue's don't have magical gifts. They are just talented in, say, music or art or drama. It's like a school for talented young people. One thing I did feel reading this book again as an adult was that it is quite childish. Not in that like it's really barren plot or anything like that, or overly simplistic, but I think more so because I reread Harry Potter a lot, if you're going to compare them, this is more childish but still very much enjoyable, and I still think you could enjoy it as an adult as I did. Like I said, it'd been such a long time since I'd read it that I couldn't remember a lot of the small details, and it was really nice rediscovering those. My thing about being childish, I think, is one thing that happens a lot in children's literature, and that's that the parents didn't behave like adults. That was what I found really unbelievable. Like, the parents in this book just didn't feel realistic to me at all, or any of the adults, to be honest. And there's a bit of like a simplistic view of like bad and good. These characters are evil and these characters are good. However, saying that, still a fantastic read. I think this is really imaginative. Jenny Nemo is one of my favourite children's authors, and I'm glad to say that I still enjoy her as an adult, and I'm definitely going to be reading the next book in the series. My library also has the audiobook of this one, so I'm going to listen to that again. I do think this is the kind of children's book or middle grade book that could be enjoyed by adults. Even if you didn't read it as a child, I'd still pick it up, give it a shot. It's fun, adventure. I love the protagonist Charlie Bone and all of his friends. I think it's a really positive depiction of friendship, seeing all their interactions, and there's also so many mysteries. A few of those mysteries are solved in the first book, but there are some overarching mysteries and kind of like ongoing feuds between characters that have yet to come to fruition, so I'm excited to see how that all works out. Like I said, I did read a couple more books. I know a couple of things that are definitely going to happen, but I never finished the series, which I'd like to do this time and really see how everything wraps up, and I'm glad to be back in this world. But those are all the books I read in the first half of November, or didn't quite finish. I would love to hear from you if you have read or are interested in reading any of these books. Please do leave your thoughts down below. I'd love to chat about any of these books with you, so please do leave your comments down below. But until next time, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!